People have two lives. The second life begins when you realize that you only have one. Confucius. This quote is beautiful. I just came across this quote and I want to discuss it as it relates to the business of risk, hedge funds, generally businesses and life. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's August 30th, 2020. This is Krim Delco. Today's a Sunday, no updates. And I just came across this quote in an interview that I read. And the quote is in many ways beautiful. People have two lives. The second begins when you realize that you only have one. It relates to the hedge fund business in a sense that, or in general in life, is when you realize that everything is on the line. When you have that much skin in the game, that a failure can mean the end of your life, your business, your fund, that's when you realize that you only have one life, and that's when you change. I think this is what this quote really is trying to relate. Then your attitude towards life changes. You become less wasteful. You become less complacent. You become more focused. You do things different. And that, according to Confucius, that is actually life. Let me start with the hedge fund business. I think a lot of people in the hedge fund business start and fail. This is the normal way things go in this business. I think if there was a statistic, it's hard to actually do a statistic, but if you had all the people that start a genuine hedge fund and then those that survive the first year, the first 5, the first 10, and then 20 years, I think the numbers would be terribly low. The percentages of survivors are unbelievably low. And that's good. I mean, this is a beautiful business, a very lucrative business, and not a lot of people can do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that lucrative. But what it really means, and related to this quote, is that sometimes people get away with behavior that is not very good, that is, according to Confucius, not life. And they get away until they don't. And then they either realize that they can't do this or it's over. For example, in the hedge fund business, the biggest vice is leverage. Leverage is an easy thing. You borrow money, you make money, and then you make more money and more money. You get more leverage. Typically, people that give you the leverage are more happy to give you more leverage if you're successful. And it just keeps going until it doesn't. And then everything collapses. It's the proverbial house of cards. I think this is not life. This is not how you should run a business. This is not how you should run risk or a hedge fund. I just wrote a piece for my Swiss newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, where I discussed the problem of lack of measurement in the hedge fund business or generally in the portfolio management business. And the nutshell of the article is that, listen, this is not engineering. You cannot run risk the same way you built the Golden Gate Bridge. It's not precise. We don't even know what we should be measuring. Therefore, the only thing you really have as a portfolio manager is your own risk tolerance and the actual need to survive. That is your best risk management. You have to behave in a way that you're robust, that you can survive. You cannot predict everything. I'm not going to run my fund such as that I survive a meteor or a war, a civil war, or things like that. I mean, there are limits to which I'm saying, look, if that happens, then all bets are off. But within the confines of the market, within the confines of economic development, within the confines of relatively normal events in the bell curve, I think I want to be able to survive. This is my first and foremost principle in risk management. And then everything else follows. Making money, generating wealth, focusing on companies, concentration, lack of diversification, because diversification actually adds risk to the portfolio. All these things are a result of my first and foremost premise, which is survival. It has to be the first and foremost premise. So I think according to Confucius, I am living that life that I'm living after I realize I only have one life. Another example is Tesla. Tesla has run the business, certainly, I would say, almost always very prudent, careful, but still in a kind of crazy moonshot type of way. But then when they launched Model 3 and they got into trouble, And the whole infrastructure, the gigafactories, the production capacity, everything was built for hundreds of thousands of cars. And then all of a sudden they got stuck. They started producing hundreds of cars per week instead of thousands. And why? Because there was a bottleneck. The company got scared. Cash flows started to be scarce. All of a sudden, the company was running very, very low on cash. People were yelling for capital raise. People were talking about potential bankruptcy. The bonds started trading at very high yields. Things started looking really bad. I think I had the pleasure to meet Elon Musk not very long after that at the Autonomy Day, and he was talking about the scare and the fear and the hell and all these things that he went through. And in a nutshell, I think the company realized at that time that there is only one life and changed its behavior. Zach Kirkhorn became CFO, extreme cost measurements were implemented, cost efficiency, capital efficiency, everything was much more rigorous, much more focused. And I think the company has become a different company, and this is the life the company hopefully will continue living, a life that will generate lots of wealth and hopefully also bring extreme good changes to the world. So people have two lives. The second begins when you realize that you only have one. I think it's a beautiful quote, and it just relates to life in general. It relates to many virtues that people should have. Don't be wasteful, don't be complacent, don't be arrogant. Don't let vanity get over you. Don't get vanity get the hang of you. Focus on humility. You know, don't have the don't have lack of urgency. Don't have elitism. Don't All these things are not good, because if you only have one life, you can't afford all these things. Focus on what's important: robustness, survival. Optimize your life in a way that you can go for it, you can take the risks, you can generate the wealth and be resourceful to do good things in life, but you have to survive. You cannot take the kind of risk that make you die. That's not the point. If you don't live, you can't do all the other things. So it's absolutely the first premise has to be robustness. And by the way, this is how nature works. If you talk to geneticists, evolutionary theorists, they all talk about robustness. First and foremost, robustness, and then flexibility, adaptation, and all these things. So again, to summarize, people have two lives. The second begins when you realize that you only have one. It relates to life, it relates to business, it relates to fund management, and it proliferates the kinds of virtues that, in my view, you have to succeed, to generate wealth, to follow your purpose, and then hopefully to do good things with all those things. Thanks.